Discover 11 spine-chilling cursed legends revealed by terrified farmers. Unexplained real horror. Sarah's heart raced as she navigated the lonely road home. The fading sunlight draped the endless cornfields in a blood-red hue, stretching shadows that whispered of unease. From the murmurs around the diner, she could still hear the stories of the punishing barn, a local dread that gripped every parent's heart. Cursed legends, they said, where vanished neighbors and disquieted crops wove a tapestry of terror in their small Midwestern town. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, dread pooling in her stomach. What if the old tales held more than just folklore? Pulling into the driveway, Sarah's pulse quickened. "Ethan!" she called, but a heavy silence swallowed her. Panic clawed at her chest when she learned from her neighbor, Mrs. Calhoun, that Ethan hadn't come inside. Just hours earlier, she'd watched him play near the cursed barn. Those twisted vines, sickly and black, coiling around its broken shutters like skeletal fingers. "Don't go near that barn," she had warned, but kids rarely listened. Feeling suffocated by a web of superstition, Sarah stood on her porch, her gaze locked on the barn that loomed menacingly at the edge of their property. The whispers danced at the back of her mind, a tale of dark curses, children daring each other to step closer, but never actually entering. The barn seemed to pulse, the air thick with anticipation, as if it had secrets that could swallow you whole if you got too close. With time slipping away, Sarah's fear morphed into fierce determination. The local sheriff had brushed off her concerns, his apathetic demeanor more a mockery than comfort. "He's just playing," he'd said, wiping the dust off his boots like it was a nuisance. Now the empty night held an unsettling chill. Glancing over her shoulder, she shot a glare at her insipid neighbors, their silhouettes blending into the darkness. Disinterested in her ever-growing horror, drawing in a shaky breath, she pushed herself to move toward the barn, each step feeling like a suicide pact with the unknown. "Ethan!" she called, her voice quivering, mingling with the rustling corn. She could feel the eyes of unseen things peering out at her as the whispers turned into a low, dreary moan, an inhuman sound born from the heart of darkness. It echoed off the barn's rotting wood. "Please, come out." Panic surged, cold sweat trickling down her spine, as sweat creased her forehead. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ethan's voice shattered the silence, faint but unmistakable. "Mom. Help." Relief flooded her veins, driving her forward into the shadows. Yet, she was met with the barn's oppressive air, thick and laden with memories of screams long muted. That chilling past loomed over her, wrapping around her heart like a vice grip, stifling hope. Each creak of the barn made her shoulders tense. What was lurking inside? The doorknob twisted beneath her grasp. With it came an electric charge, a buzzing that made her hair stand on end. The corn stalks hung like specters, drooping, kissing the earth as if mourning. It felt like the world had shifted, leaving her standing at the entrance of both her fear and salvation. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of generations on her shoulders, secrets buried deep within the soil, waiting for her arrival. Could she find her son before the darkness consumed them both? Steeling herself, she pushed open the door, the old wood creaking like a funeral dirge, revealing a void that promised both answers and nightmares. Would she dare confront what lurked in the abyss, or would that eternal darkness claim her family? The choice loomed larger than life, and the low moans from deep inside beckoned her forward into despair. The door swung wide, an ominous groan reverberating in the stillness. Shadows danced in the flickering light from her cell phone, casting eerie shapes against the barn's rough-hewn walls. The scent of damp earth and decay filled her nostrils, an acrid reminder of what lay hidden within. She hesitated, fear gnawing at her as echoes of Ethan's cry lingered in her ears. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf in the wind. The darkness inside felt alive, pressing against her, urging her to turn back. But the thought of her son trapped within those cursed walls ignited a spark of courage. She stepped inside, the threshold of fear crossed, knowing retreat was no longer an option. As soon as her foot crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped, and the air thickened, almost choking her. The barn felt like a tomb, the weight of lost lives wrapping around her, suffocating. She peered into the black void that swallowed the corners of the barn, the persistent weight of dread shadowing her heart. "Mom!" The call penetrated the darkness, closer now, but mixed with it an unsettling sound, a soft, dirty rustling that skittered across the floorboards. It sounded wrong, inhuman. Gritting her teeth, Sarah followed the voice, each step cautious, the old wooden floor creaking under her weight. Layers of dust swirled around her, illuminated only by sparse beams of light from her phone. In the distance, she noticed a large pile of hay stacked ominously against the back wall, shifting slightly as if something breathed beneath it. A strange instinct urged her away, but the muffled cries of her son urged her forward. "Hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming," she shouted, hoping her voice would cut through the darkness. But the response was unsettling silence, and then, a low chuckle echoed back. A sound that felt too familiar, a conqueror mocking its prey. With trembling hands, she pushed the hay aside and gasped as a crumpled form lay beneath, not her son, but a tattered doll, the same one Ethan loved. The realization punched her gut. "Is this a sick joke?" she whispered, panic tightening around her throat. The chuckling rose again, deeper, more taunting, filling the air like a rancid fog. She backed away slowly, but too late. A rustling behind her sent her heart racing. Ethan? Where was he? The dark corners seemed to move, shadows falling at unnatural angles. She felt trapped, corners closing in, an unseen force beckoning her deeper into despair. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed behind her, sending splinters of wood flying. A blinding figure erupted from within the pile of hay, a twisted, unrecognizable shape, its scream tearing through the barn like a siren. It raised a gnarled hand, fingers twisted, eyes aglow with an otherworldly light, and pointed right at her. Every instinct screamed at her to run. She turned and bolted for the door, but unseen hands grasped at her ankles. The walls seemed to pulse, closing in, and for a horrifying moment, she staggered. "Get off!" she cried, tearing free with desperation, a raw instinct for survival kicking in. Bursting out of the barn, the cool night air slapped her face like a harsh truth. Behind her, the barn groaned ominously, the whispers of lost souls swirling in the darkness, echoing, beckoning her to return. But she couldn't think of that. She had to find Ethan. "Ethan! Where are you?" Panic clawed at her voice as she ran toward the fields, the moonlight casting long shadows on the ground. Each breath was a battle against overwhelming dread. The field seemed endless, a maze of corn whispering secrets of the cursed barn, but she felt his presence, a pull toward the thickest part of the corn. Squaring her shoulders, she plunged into the rows, desperately calling for her son. Would she find him safe, or would the curse drag her into the abyss of despair waiting in the barn? "Mom! Help!" The voice was closer now. But what would she find when she reached him? The darkness lurked, hungering to claim more souls, and she was no longer sure if she would emerge from these fields unscathed. The air thickened as the moon hidden behind clouds flickered ominously, and a shiver of terror raced down her spine. What if she had awakened something that should have remained buried? What if, when she found Ethan, it was already too late? She fought against the overwhelming darkness swallowing the cornfield, her heart pounding like a war drum. Every rustle of the leaves felt like a whispered warning, a breath from the unseen horrors waiting just beyond her reach. "Ethan!" she yelled again, desperation pouring from every syllable. Her phone flickered weakly, casting a faint glow over the rows of corn. Each stalk towered over her like watchful giants, their green arms swaying as if they were alive, whispering secrets best left unheard. The darkness closed in, pressing against her with breathless urgency, but she forced herself to move forward. Then, another sound, sharper than before. A scream, or perhaps a cry for help. It sliced through her like a knife. "Mom!" The voice was clearer now, stumbling through the air like a half-formed echo. It felt close, terrifyingly so. "Ethan! Where are you?" She spun in circles, trying to locate her son through the thick maze of corn. The moon peeked out from behind a bank of clouds, illuminating the field in ghostly silver just enough for her to see. The stalks themselves seemed to breathe as she pushed deeper into the rows, arms brushing against the rough leaves. With each step, she felt eyes watching, waiting. "He is here," she whispered to herself, a mantra against the rising tide of fear. "He is here." But as she neared the center of the field, dread knotted in her stomach. The voices began to swirl anew, a chorus of lost souls stirring within the rustling leaves. "Mom! Help!" The voice was almost drowned by the cacophony around her, layered with a laughter that echoed, mocking her distress. Suddenly, the corn parted, revealing a small clearing, and at its center stood Ethan, or something that looked like him. Shadowed by the lingering darkness, he stood frozen, mouth agape, eyes wide with terror. "Ethan!" She rushed toward him, but he didn't move. Whatever had a hold on him wrapped around his limbs like tendrils. Panic surged, threatening to swallow her whole as she reached out. "What's wrong?" "I'm here." But even as she grasped his hand, an overwhelming force jerked him away. The laughter grew louder, more sinister. "Mom! Help me!" His voice broke, a sound of pure terror that shattered her resolve. "No!" She pulled harder, but invisible chains constrained him, dragging him backward, deeper into the darkness of the field, as if the shadows themselves were alive, hungry for her son. "Ethan, hold on." She leaned forward, feeling the cold tendrils stretch from the depths of the earth, wrapping around her legs, pulling her down. She screamed, her hands slipping from Ethan's grasp, the light of her phone flickering dangerously low. "Stay with me." She struggled against the binds, but they tightened around her, relentless. She felt the whispers surge again, a tide of voices, each laced with sorrow and longing, emanating from the very soil beneath her feet, a pact formed from desperation. "Mom!" A final plea echoed against the growing rush of shadows. Ethan's figure dwindled, swallowed whole, invisibly lost in the engulfing night. The whispers turned into screams, a cacophony of wails that clawed at her sanity. She stumbled backward, dizzy with fear, the laughter now surrounding her, echoing all around the cornfield, each sound sharper than the last. Then, the ground beneath her gave way, and she fell into darkness. As the void enveloped her, a chilling thought crossed her mind: had she truly lost him forever? What lay waiting on the other side of this nightmare? When she finally landed, she was met with silence. The echoing laughter had ceased, and the only sound was her heartbeat, pounding in her ears, filling the void. But in that stillness, the ground moved again, convulsing as shadows swirled around her. A low, guttural whisper slithered through the air. "You shouldn't have come here." The cold that enveloped her pierced her skin, and an undeniable truth crashed over her. She hadn't awakened a curse. She had become part of it. In the depths of that chilling dark, questions swirled like the very shadows that surrounded her. Would she find Ethan again, or was she forever bound to this nightmare? And what other horrors awaited her in the cursed heart of the fields? She lay there in the darkness, breathless and trembling. Silence pressed around her, thick and suffocating. It felt as if the shadows were holding their breath, waiting. Eyes strained against the void, she tried to adjust, to focus on something, anything. But the nothingness remained relentless. "Ethan!" She called again, voice cracking. No answer. Just that chilling whisper echoing in her mind: "You shouldn't have come here." Something shifted in the darkness. A movement, subtle but unmistakable. The air grew heavier, electric, buzzing with tension. Panic surged anew, knotting in her throat. It was no longer just fear of losing Ethan. Now it was terror of what lay in this abyss, lurking in the shadows. Careful not to make a sound, she pressed a hand against the cold, hard ground, trying to gain her bearings. It felt wrong, as if the soil itself was alive and reacting to her touch. A pulse, alive with misery, coursed beneath her fingers. The shadows around her stirred again, and a shape began to take form. It was barely there, but the outline flickered in her mind, an image seemingly conjured from her nightmares. A twisted figure, old and gnarled, like the very stalks of corn that had bewitched her. Its face, if she could even call it that, was a mask of sorrow, mouth twisted into a perpetual wail, hollow eyes drilled into her soul. "Leave," came a rasping whisper, dragging through the void like a rusty knife. "You must leave." Instinct took over. She scrambled backward, pushing against the ground, desperate for escape. The figure stepped closer, shadows falling away to reveal long, twisted limbs clawing at the air. "Find him before it's too late, Ethan." The name exploded from her lips. The figure paused, a wisp of darkness hovering just a breath away. She could feel an ancient sorrow radiating from it, a pain so deep it shattered the scream that traced her voice. "Mom!" That voice. A sob broke free, scraping at her chest. It was clear now, and it echoed through the void, bouncing off echoes of despair. "Ethan! Where are you?" Her voice wavered, desperate and strained. She gripped her phone, the feeble light sputtered and shimmered before cutting out entirely, plunging her back into darkness. Panic turned to fury. "Let him go!" She shouted, her words swirling around her like incantations, daring whatever loomed in the shadows to show itself. "I won't leave without him." Too late. The figure loomed larger, a silhouette forged from nightmares. "You are one with the curse now." Her heart pounded. What did it mean? An unbidden memory flickered in her mind, tales of others lost in similar fields, petty whispers from farmers, stories of children drawn to darkness, never to return. A chill gripped her. Was Ethan just another name added to their misery? No more. The figure's rasp was both soothing and terrifying. "The ground craves." Craves. She felt the earth tremble beneath her, as if yearning for something it couldn't grip. Then, the darkness surged. The whispering crescendoed, entwining with her heartbeat, drowning her reason. "Ethan!" She cried, the desperation now nearly suffocating. "I will find you." And then she felt it, a sudden tug, a force pulling at her spirit, threatening to rip her from this reality. Tendrils of darkness reached for her again, binding her in a cruel grip. In the panic, a thought bloomed, had her calling for him summoned her own doom. The ground shuddered, the laughter returned, echoing around them like a menacing chorus. She fought against it, against the shadows, against the voices clawing at her mind. But the grip tightened, dragging her further into its embrace of despair. "No. Don't let me go." And just as she thought all hope was lost, a piercing light sliced through the darkness, blinding and intense. She squinted, heart racing, filled with a flicker of hope amid the chaos, but the light flickered as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind confusion and the lingering question, was it a signal of salvation or a new terror ready to engulf them both? In that moment, she realized the darkness was not merely the absence of light, it was alive and scheming. What would emerge next? Would it reveal the truth about the curse? The code was unraveling, and somewhere in the chaotic swirl, a chilling truth awaited. The light vanished as quickly as it had appeared, plunging her back into a suffocating blackness. An overwhelming stillness enveloped her, so thick it threatened to choke her words right from her throat. Every scream, every desperate plea seemed to dissolve into the cavernous silence, swallowed whole as if the darkness had devoured them. Her heart raced, each beat a frantic reminder of her vulnerability. But Ethan's voice echoed in her head, clinging like a lifeline. "Mom! Ethan!" She cried one more time, the fire within her reigniting. Determined to find him, she forced herself to stand. Hands trembling, she swept them through the shadows, seeking anything tangible, a tree, a fence, maybe even him. Then, there it was again, movement, creeping and slinking through the blackness. She fixed her eyes on the spot, heart thumping hard against her ribs. The shadow skittered closer, coalescing into the same horrifying figure that had warned her to leave. Its hollow gaze bored into her, twisting her insides with a deep-rooted fear. "Find him," it rasped, the voice splintered like dry twigs being crushed underfoot. She stepped back, bumping into something solid, a gnarled tree trunk, its bark rough and alien against her skin. "Where is he?" she demanded, the plea rising in her voice, unwavering amid a storm of terror. Instead of answering, the figure extended a twisted arm, pointing deeper into the dark, a slow, deliberate movement that felt both agonizing and mesmerizing. "He is at the heart of the curse." "What curse?" The words slipped past her lips almost in a whisper, drowning in the anxiety that bubbled within her. "You've taken him, haven't you? You've taken all of them." "Not taken." A low chuckle rolled through the air, mingling with the rustling of unseen leaves. "Bound, just as you will be soon." The ground trembled again, the pulse beneath her sinking deeper, grabbing hold of her resolve. The laughter echoed, filling her with foreboding. "What does it want from us?" she thought, a gnawing terror wrapping around her mind. Suddenly, a new sound pierced the depths of despair. A faint, rhythmic hammering echoed somewhere beyond her immediate grasp. Like the pulse of a heartbeat, it vibrated in the air, synchronized with the thumping of her own. "Ethan!" she shouted again, this time gripping hard onto the tree for anything resembling strength. "Mom!" His voice was faint, fragile yet unwavering, threaded in with the eerie beating sound. From the depths of the darkness, there came a flicker of movement, a figure emerging, stumbling through that thick veil between them like a moth drawn to a flame. "Ethan!" Relief surged through her, quick and lethal. But a trepidation settled low in her gut. As he drew closer, she recognized that he was not alone. Clinging to his side was a shadow, indistinct and nebulous, coiling around him like a viper. "Stop!" she shouted, but the command fizzled against the overwhelming thrum of fear. It was no longer just about finding him. She had to save him from whatever darkness lurked within. "Mom!" Ethan's voice faltered, confusion clouding his eyes. "It won't let me go." The figure, shadowy and dark, began to morph, twisting into something monstrous and terrible. She could see its fangs, glimmering like broken glass in the dark. Desperation clawed at her throat. "Ethan! Fight it! Don't let it take you!" But the dark figure swirled around him, distorting his reality, engulfing him in shadow. She reached out, her fingers desperately grasping nothing as the bond between them stretched thin. And just then, she saw it, a flash of the familiar light, brighter than before, fissuring through the darkness and illuminating the twisted figure's grotesque form. "Help us!" she shrieked, her voice raw and pleading. Would the light help them? Or was it merely a harbinger of more horrors? The shadows roared, a sound so terrifying it stole her breath as they twisted around her, tightening their grip, pulling her into their abyss once more. She knew she had to act fast, but she felt even the earth below pull away from her resolve. Is this the end? She wondered as darkness rushed in, swallowing her screams whole. Was something far worse about to emerge from the abyss below? Why was the light beckoning them, and would it save them or destroy them completely? The darkness enveloped her completely, wrapping her in cold tendrils that gnawed at her sanity. She could hear Ethan's voice fading, drowned out by the sinister laughter echoing in her ears. It was as if the shadows were mocking her, taunting her with the knowledge of what lay ahead. "Ethan!" she cried out again, but this time, her voice trembled like a fragile leaf caught in a tempest. The air around her seemed to shift, a heavy weight grounding her feet in place. She wished for nothing more than to leap toward that flicker of light, but the abyss around her seemed intent on keeping her trapped. Then, a sudden lurch in her gut signaled the ground beneath her began to shake violently. Her fingers gripped the gnarled tree, her knuckles white, as the vibrations shook her resolve. The shadows surged, writhing like snakes, feverishly eager to pull her into their depths. With a sharp intake of breath, she pushed away from the tree and stumbled toward the light. The bizarre contrast felt sacrilegious against the oppressive darkness. As she drew closer, she could make out Ethan, still ensnared in the suffocating grasp of that monstrous shadow. "Please. Fight it," she urged, each word fraying at the edges as she crossed the threshold between light and shadow. The light flickered, a heartbeat in itself, illuminating Ethan's terrified expression. Panic coursed through her. He nodded weakly. "I'm trying." He was struggling under the weight of the darkness binding him, but she could see the spark of determination in his eyes. Before she could take another step, the shadow twitched and recoiled, momentarily releasing Ethan. He gasped, staggering toward her, but the shadow lashed out, a whip of darkness that snatched him back as if he were a mere puppet. "No!" She thrashed against the unseen force, her hands clawing the air as she fought to break the invisible chains that bound them. She could feel them tightening around her throat, squeezing the very breath from her lungs. "Mom!" Ethan's voice sliced through the haze of terror, piercing her heart like a dagger. She watched helplessly as he fell to his knees, the shadow coiling back around him like an oily mist. In that moment of despair, a thought pierced her mind, a desperate plan. She remembered the warnings, the ancient tales that wrapped around her family's history like vines entangling a forgotten door. Legends of curses, tales of a bond between light and dark. "Ethan. Focus on me. Fight it. I believe in you." Her voice rose above the chaos, the words wrapping around him like armor. If she could just infuse hope into his heart, maybe they could push back against the grip of darkness, but the shadows hissed, responding like a live creature, angry and thrashing. "You think light can save you? It only reveals the horrors." A deafening silence filled the air, the symphony of chaos momentarily quieting as the shadow surveyed her, realization dawning on her that it was keenly aware of her fear. Then, like a vengeful spirit, the figure lunged toward her, its shadowy tendrils reaching out as it shrieked her name, a warped version escaping its toothy maw. "What do you think you lost will come back?" Ethan screamed, struggling against the darkness that was pulling him deeper, and she could see the flicker of his essence fading, becoming just another soul lost in the void. "No!" She screamed in defiance, determination flaring. But as she stood on the precipice between horror and hope, a chilling whisper echoed behind her, "Welcome to the curse." Was this the moment her bravery would crumble, or would she uncover a truth hidden within the shadows? What lay in store for her and Ethan at the heart of this terrifying curse? The answers loomed like specters, and she knew she had to confront them, heart racing against the creeping dread. As the darkness swallowed her once more, she realized the light was far more than a guide, it was a test. Would it save them or lead them to an unspeakable fate? Panic shot through her as the shadow lunged at her with a fierce speed. She flinched, instinct overwhelming her. But the darkness suddenly froze, hovering inches from her face. She could feel its cold breath against her skin, and for a heartbeat, there was silence between them, an understanding of shared terror. "Mom!" Ethan's voice broke the stillness like shattering glass. He was still in the shadow's clutches, his body trembling, eyes wide with fear. "Listen to me, Ethan," she pleaded, hardly recognizing her own voice, strained and urgent. "You have to hold on. Remember what we talked about. The light offers a way." The shadow wheezed, its form twisting grotesquely, like a serpent preparing to strike. "Light? Light shows you the way only to the darkness." It spoke with a voice so unnatural, it sent chills down her spine. It echoed inside her, intertwining with her thoughts, sowing seeds of despair. Could it be true? Was the light merely leading them to further torment? Ethan choked back a sob, and a fresh wave of dread crashed over her. "No!" she screamed, her resolve hardening. She took a step forward, eyes locked onto Ethan's. "Fight it. Remember the stories, the tales that bind light and dark. They're not just stories. They're our chance." The shadow tensed, as though her words struck a nerve. "You think your faith can defy the curse?" It hissed, rippling with anger, its form becoming more defined, as menacing as a storm cloud swelling before a thunderous downpour. Darkness is eternal. You are nothing but a fleeting candle flame. Ethan, eyes glistening with tears, took a breath that echoed louder than the shadow's laughter. Mom, I can't. She wouldn't let despair take him. You can. Look inside yourself. Remember who you are. Your light is stronger than you know. The shadow recoiled slightly, almost as if struck by her conviction. It writhed, angry tendrils shaking as if unsure of itself. Stop. You disturb the balance. It spat, but it didn't move to drag Ethan back in. Was she breaking through? The slight flicker of hope ignited within her. She extended her hand toward Ethan, ready to pull him back into the light. Take my hand, Ethan. You have to believe. The darkness tightened its grip, a desperate attempt to pull him down. You will not escape. What is yours will stay with me. But the moment lingered, a strange suspension of dread and hope. Ethan's eyes darted from her hand to the encroaching shadow, and she could feel the pulse of fear radiating from him. Do it. She urged, heart racing. You're stronger than this. Ethan hesitated, then, like a burst of thunder, he lunged for her, breaking free from the shadow's grip. A surge of light enveloped him, and for a split second, the darkness recoiled as if stung. Yes. That's it. But the shadow writhed back, furious, its laughing filling the void, drowning out their resolve. You think you have won? The curse is not so easily cast off. More will join you in this eternal night. As Ethan stumbled toward her, they clasped hands. She felt the surge of energy between them, the warmth of his gravity pushing back against the suffocating cold. But the shadow pulsed like a heartbeat, angry and relentless, swirling around them. Suddenly, the weight of despair bore down heavier, and she could barely stand. She felt the shadows creeping at her heels, each whisper pulling at her sanity. What will it take to break this curse? She yelled, both to the shadow and herself. With an explosive burst, the darkness surged forward again, forcing them back. You will soon learn a price must be paid, and more darkness festers around the corner. They felt their grip waning as shadows encroached upon them, threatening to swallow their hope whole. Just as she braced herself for the plunge into the depths of terror, a flash of memory flickered in her mind. An ancient, rusted key symbol, lost in her family's history. Ethan. She shouted desperately. Do you remember the key? But as Ethan's eyes widened in recognition, the looming darkness began to laugh. What did that key unlock? And would it be enough to escape the curse, or would it tear them apart forever? Time stuttered as reality warped around them. The shadow's laughter burrowed into her bones, gnawing at her resolve. The air crackled, thick with impending doom. A key? How quaint, it mocked, the coldness brushing against her cheeks like ice. Ethan's fingers gripped hers tightly, but the tremors in his hands betrayed the weight he bore. She could see the flickers of doubt in his eyes, battling against the glimmer of hope. Mom, what key? What does it unlock? I don't know. She cried, desperation clawing at her throat. But it's part of our family's story. There has to be something more. The shadow writhed with malice, its form coiling tighter around them. You cling to ancient tales. They are but the remnants of forgotten fears. The truth is more sinister. The darkness surged again, releasing a cacophony of whispers that filled her ears like a storm. You believe the light can save you? It is merely a way to delay the inevitable. You will all join me. Panic rose sharp and bitter, clenching her heart like a vice. She focused on Ethan, the warmth of his skin grounding her. We can't give in. Remember the tales of our ancestors. The key must unlock something tied to our family's past. He nodded, though fear loomed over his expression. But what if we can't find it in time? The shadows clung tighter, suffocating hope, as the laughter reverberated like a dark hymn. Look around you. The darkness is not just a force, it's a hunger. It feeds on the despair you feed it. The creature growled, its voice blending with the growing chaos around them. A flash of the key, rusty and ancient, flickered through her mind. Where had she seen it? Buried in old boxes, her grandmother's tales swirling through her childhood memories. Ethan. The attic. He faltered, shadows still threatening to crush any remnants of light. What does it matter? We can find the key. In our house, there are old things hidden. If we destroy the source of the darkness, we can break this curse. She felt the energy shift when he considered her words, flickering like a candle before the storm. The shadow snickered, too aware of their plan. Run to your attic, little candle. I will devour it before you can even comprehend its power. Summoning the beating of her heart into her voice, she pulled Ethan closer. We can do this. Without waiting for a response, she turned, pulling him along with her as they dashed through the chaos, hearts pounding in unison like war drums. The darkness chased, tendrils snapping at their heels, whispering vile secrets meant to shake their courage. Through the dimly lit corners of their home, she could feel the remnants of light, memories clinging stubbornly. Their laughter echoed in her mind, a shield against the tightening grip of shadows. Faster. Ethan urged, fear intensifying. The shadows flickered, reaching hungrily, but they barreled past, racing toward the stairs. Ghostly laughter echoed, mocking their desperation. You can't escape. You are the next sacrifices. You belong to me. The attic door loomed ahead, a portal to either salvation or doom. She swung it open, a surge of stale air greeting them. Dust motes danced in the low light. Old trunks lined the walls, memories sealed within. She scanned the room, heart racing. There. Ethan shouted, pointing to an old trunk hidden behind layers of dust. Help me. She shoved the lid open, frantically rummaging through the remnants of their history. The shadows snarled behind them, coiling like vipers. We have to hurry. Her hands grazed something metallic, cold and rough. She yanked it free, the rusted key dangling from her fingers. As their eyes met, realization struck. They needed to find the lock it opened, but where? The shadows rippled in fury, their whispers now vengeful screams. You will not escape this time. The darkness is hungry. With her heart in her throat, she stood there, key clutched tight, as terror washed over her. But time was running out. What had she unlocked? Would it lead to freedom, or an even greater nightmare? The shadow lunged again, and they were left with only one choice. Would the key save them, or destroy everything they held dear? Ethan's eyes widened as the shadow lunged through the air, its claws reaching for them, hungry and relentless. She felt the darkness curling around her very soul, trying to pull her into its cold embrace. Mom, what do we do? He cried, his voice raw with panic. Find the lock. She shouted, scanning the attic. Dusty trunks, faded photographs, and long-forgotten toys. A lifetime of memories surrounded them. But where was the lock that would release them or destroy them? The laughter from the shadow echoed around her, a chilling sound that wrapped around her heart like a vice. You'll never understand what that key unlocks. It opens doors best left closed. She gripped the key tighter. Rusty and ancient, it felt heavy with secrets. She struggled to remember her grandmother's stories, tales woven with warnings and truths. Was there a place something hidden? The shadows surged closer, filling the room with a suffocating dread. It will be your tomb. You don't have the courage to unravel this nightmare. They shrieked in unison, each word sharp as a blade. Ethan's breath hitched, and she turned to him, their eyes locked in desperate determination. There has to be something. An old cabinet, a locked box, something that Grandpa told us about. Over there. Ethan pointed at a tall cabinet in the corner, its dark wood slick with age and shadow. No. Not there. The shadow screeched, each syllable dripping with malice. It's too late for you to find what's hidden. You'll join the darkness. Her feet were already moving, racing toward the cabinet, heart pounding like a drum. She could feel the shadows braiding through her hair, whispers brushing against her skin like ice. Help me, Ethan. She yelled, forcing the cabinet doors open. Inside, the dim light revealed dust-covered boxes and faded letters. There. A small, rusted lock clasped tight on a box tucked in the back, the keyhole gnawed by time. She rushed forward, her fingers trembling as she inserted the key. Would it grant them freedom or unleash something unspeakable? Open it. Hurry. Ethan urged, his voice strained with fear. The lock clicked, a sound that echoed ominously within the attic. She held her breath, heart racing as she turned the key. The lid creaked open, releasing a gust of stale, damp air. Inside lay a thin, frayed journal, its pages yellowed and brittle. It looked ancient, holding secrets that had burdened their family for generations. She pulled it free, feeling its weight, as if it were a talisman against the darkness, but the mere sight ignited a furious howl from the shadows. No. You're not meant to see that. The truth must stay buried. Read it. Ethan shouted, backing up, drawn to the whispers of the journal as if it were calling to them. We need to know. As she opened the first page, the darkness surged forward, its claws snapping, desperate to snuff out any light. Words spilled forth, and as she read, a horrifying realization began to dawn. Ethan, she gasped. I think I know what we've unleashed. The shadows paused, swirling around them, a tremor of fear threading through their chaos. They realized they could be vulnerable after all. Sealing the past can be fatal. A whisper hissed, betrayal thick in the air, but as the words in the journal revealed the curse binding their family, her heart raced with terror. We have to end it now. It's the only way to escape. Just then, the shadows lunged one last time, merging into a tidal wave of darkness as she read the final chilling line. They must be sacrificed to keep the key's power. Ethan's hand trembled in hers as silence blanketed the attic. Mom, what does that mean? As the last word fell from her lips, they both felt it, a shift in the air, the darkness waiting and watching with a newfound hunger. Would uncovering their family's past save them or seal their fate forever? The darkness held its breath, a predator ready to strike. The floor creaked ominously beneath their feet, and the shadows closed in, hungry for the truth. The journal trembled in Sarah's hands, words almost pulsating with a sinister energy. We have to destroy it, Ethan. This has to end. The key, it's bound to our bloodline, Ethan said, his voice strained, digging for understanding amidst the chaos. Mom, what if it's the price? Suddenly, the shadows began to gather, swirling violently. Their grotesque forms pushed against the edges of the attic, desperate to snuff out the light. It was clear that they were aware of the potential threat the journal posed. Its contents could dismantle their curse. You must turn away. It won't save you. They shrieked, mad laughter echoing through the tiny space. Sarah gritted her teeth, her heart hammering like a war drum. Ethan, listen. She could feel the grip of shadows lurching closer, their icy presence crawling beneath her skin. We either end this now, or we sacrifice ourselves to their hunger. We have to destroy the key and the journal together. With determination igniting within her, Sarah found her courage in the face of impending doom. It can't have you, Ethan. Not you. Take the key, and let us burn this cursed journal. Her voice became a rallying cry against the threatening wails, piercing through the consuming darkness. Ethan nodded, resolve quickly replacing the fear in his eyes. Together, they rushed toward a rusted metal basin in the corner of the attic, the last remnants of a fireplace. Trembling with each step, they positioned the journal inside, the shadows shrieking in rage. But as they began to light it, a horrifying thing ripped through the air. A cacophony of despair pierced the silence, revealing more swirling shapes. They had awakened something deeper, ancient, and unforgiving. Do it. Ethan urged, urging his mother to strike the match. With a flick of gold, the flame burst forth, licking the edges of the journal. The shadows howled, a tempest of rage exploding like thunder, sensing their imminent defeat. Sarah could feel their malevolence crawling like fire over her skin. As the flames danced higher, a resounding scream echoed, filling the attic with abandon. No. You cannot sever the bond. The shadows shrieked. Stay strong, Ethan. Sarah shouted, gripping her son's hand tighter. Feel the warmth of the fire. It's our salvation. In that moment, as the fire engulfed the journal, they felt an otherworldly pull and immense strength flowing from the journal, countering the oppressive shadows. The luminous flames flickered wildly, illuminating their surroundings, revealing twisted forms retreating from the light. You're breaking the curse. Whispered a voice, soft yet commanding, weaving through the chaos. The horrid shapes began to tremble, shades caught in an unseen will of fate, memories too long shackled were clawing to be set free. The air crackled with fervor as the shadows began to dissolve, howls of despair morphing into shrieks of surprise and confusion. Keep pushing. Sarah urged. As the last threads of darkness melted into nothingness, a brilliant white light enveloped them like a warm cocoon. The very fabric of the curse was unraveling, the ties forged in despair broken forever, and then, just like that, silence fell. Every shadow dissipated, replaced by luminescence that filled the attic with warmth, flooding it with forgotten light. The oppressive weight lifted, leaving a palpable freshness in the air. Ethan blinked up at her, eyes wide. Mom, did we do it? Tears of relief streamed down Sarah's cheeks. I think we did, sweetheart. His smile brightened like a sunrise, illuminating the lingering shadows of their terror. They embraced tightly, heartbeats echoing a new sense of hope. A distant call echoed through the remnants of their house, a soft, loving murmur weaving through the air. Sarah, Ethan. It was the voice of family, their ancestors finally at peace. And within that tranquility, Sarah felt certain, the curse had indeed been undone. Hand in hand, they stepped outside, the night air crisp and alive with renewed possibilities. The moon shone down on their cornfields, untouched by shadows, a stark contrast to the claustrophobic darkness they had faced. Promise me you'll always remember the stories, Sarah whispered, gratitude bubbling within her. They're a part of who we are. I promise, Mom. Ethan smiled, a bloom of joy brightening his spirit as they walked into the dawning light. Finally free from the curse under the blood-red sky, they turned their backs on the cursed barn, vowing to carve their own path forward. They had conquered the darkness and emerged into the light, filled with a new legacy, one of hope, family, and an unbreakable bond. Mom. Ethan's voice broke the stillness. Yeah. Where should we start with the stories? Sarah chuckled softly, realizing that they would write their own tales now, devoid of curses but filled with love. Everywhere, Ethan. Every story begins somewhere. Let us make ours unforgettable. With that, they stepped confidently into the future, leaving behind the trappings of fear. But now, it was your turn. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to show your support and feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. We can't wait to see you in the next story.